Hello everybody! Today I want to show you these two books that I have. The one is Embroidery on Knitting or Embroidery on Knits. This is the German version, but there is an English one. This book is made by Judith Gumlich and she sent it to me after doing an interview with her, and I'm very excited to show you the contents. And there is the Embroidered Closet by Alexandra Stratcoder. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce that. So both of them are clothing embroidery related, so I think they make a good match for a video. So let's start. Also, I hope you don't mind my broken English. I'm from Germany and I'm not a native English speaker, so there will be mistakes, and I already have the problem that my mouth doesn't feel like speaking the right language, so I have to get used to speaking in front of the camera in English. So please keep that in mind and don't be too harsh in the comments. And yeah, well, let's start. The first book I want to introduce to you is Embroidery on Knits by Judith Gumlich. And this is the German version, as I said before, but it is available in English. And the first half of the book is not basic knowledge, but knowledge part. And the second half is the projects part. So you really get a lot of knowledge in this book, not just project after project after project. I really liked the knowledge part because I like to learn new things all the time. I really like the layout and the pictures in this book, and it is really thorough in all the descriptions, what materials you can use, because we are talking about embroidery on knits specifically, and that is very different than stitching freehand on regular fabrics, and there is a lot to consider, and this book goes very much into detail with this. So there are tips and tricks how to transfer the pattern, and the technique that Judith uses for embroidery on knits is using embroidery stabilizer. And I did an interview with her last year, and it was very interesting to ask her about all the ins and outs. The interview is in German, so I sadly can't share it with you on this English channel. Embroidering on knitted fabric is really difficult or different because the fabrics is soft and squishy and elastic and very not fine, but very, you have very big stitches, and it is very difficult to get an intricate design onto something like this. And yes, I'm also a knitter, so I'm very excited to get this book. The very genius thing about using stabilizer on knitted fabrics is that you can stitch on it like regular embroidery on regular fabric, and after you wash it away, the embroidery stitches are still in place on the knitted fabric, and that's mind-blowing to me that this works so well. And Judith assured me that this is really a game changer in embroidering on knitted things like sweaters and such. So I marked some pages that I wanted to show you. Here you can see the extent to which the basics are also shown, like weaving in the ends or starting the threads. Also, there's an entire section about ribbon embroidery, and I like that very much. I did not try real ribbon embroidery myself. I did experiment a little bit, but I didn't work with silk threads or something like that. And it is very interesting and to see how it can be done on knitted fabrics. I didn't even imagine doing ribbon work on knitted fabrics. Also, I like the photography in this book. I like the moody atmosphere, and also the pages and the projects. Everything has room, enough room to breathe, so to say. Also, the layout is very, very lovely. Each project has four pages. So you have 2 double pages with the template and 2 pages of the finished result, and you can really get a better grasp of how the project looks and feels, and you have the descriptions on how to make it, and it doesn't feel as cramped as some other embroidery books. Not to talk bad about other embroidery books. I really liked it about this book that there is so much space for each project. So this is one of the projects. And of course this one has 2 pages only. So this is one of the projects that has 4 pages. And I really like it. Because, I don't know, it's nice to have more room for every project. I'm rambling on about this, but I really like that part. So in the knowledge part, there's also a section on how to choose colors and contrast and picking the right thing for you and your garment, because I also think it's really good to maybe use a swatch beforehand and try out some things, because if you embroider your garment and you have to unpick the stitches, that I imagine that it can be a little bit difficult, especially if you have some specialty yarns like fuzzy yarns like this one. So the projects are mainly florals and insects, so the very traditional motifs that you see in other embroidery books too, which is fine. Many people like insects, especially butterflies or moths and bugs, and also the floral part is just a classic, so no going wrong with that. So I think if you don't like florals or insects on your garments, then this book might not be for you. I must say that the knowledge part is such a huge portion. It's 50-50. So even if you don't like the projects in itself, you can take a lot out of this book just from the knowledge side of the book. So I wouldn't disregard the book just because I don't like flowers and insects. That's what I'm saying. There's also a chapter about embroidering mittens. I just had to think about the word in English, sorry. So this is the chapter about embroidering mittens, and this is such a small project, and I liked that it is possible without the stabilizer. So here are a lot of how-to images, and I really liked that you have a small project in here that you can practice on, so to say. For example, if you have small children and they have these little mittens, you can practice on those. And I also love that there's a huge variety of projects in this book. There's a scarf, there's a sweater, a cardigan, mittens, and a hat. There was a hat. So you can see different types of knitted garments, which you can use, and how to position the things. And I really like that. So who is this book for? I would say I would recommend this book mainly for knitters who want to embellish their clothing a bit more. So if you like to knit plain garments like sweaters that don't have cables or lace patterns or something, and you have plain things, then this book helps you to embellish it. If you are a knitter of intricate cable sweaters or lace patterns, then I think it's harder to embroider on that, although it is possible, but because of the structure of the garment, you already have so much visual interest that you don't need additional color or motifs on it, I think. But you can do what you want. So if you like to add more and more and more layers, that's totally fine. So embroidering on knits in itself, I think, is not so much a beginner technique, but the book is very beginner friendly. So I would say a beginner of embroidery would be fine with this book. And if you are a knitter but have never embroidered before, I think you're fine. So the embroidery projects that are in this book are made with very thick yarn. So you don't have the one-stranded embroidery floss or something. So you have very big motifs, or yeah, like I think it was something like this, or on the back or on the seam. So you have very relatively big projects that you, or motifs that you can place anywhere you want. So I recommend this book for every knitter, or if you are gifted many knitted objects by family members, that's also an option I've heard. Maybe you can ask your knitting family members if they have some leftover threads or so to try it out. And I really recommend trying it out because look at this. It's beautiful. It's very, very pretty. So I would say this book is a huge recommendation. And now let's go to the next book. The second book is The Embroidered Closet, and this book is written by the content creator Florals and Floss. So the pages used for the basics, for the basic knowledge, I would say it's about a third of the book, or maybe a fourth. What is it? I don't know, a quarter. And the basics are the basics. So you can see the supplies you need, the tools you need, the stitches are shown with illustrations and very, very simple. And there's also a sections, because this is about embroidery on clothes, that showcases the differences between stabilizer and interfacing, for example. I often get the question what I use to back or protect the embroidery on clothes from the inside, and I'm always a little bit confused because you don't really have to. I think interfacing is mostly necessary for machine embroidery and not really for hand embroidery, but if you are very sensitive to the skin and you don't like the, I don't know, scratchiness or the additional threads on your skin, then maybe interfacing is an option. And well, then there are some care instructions, because hand embroidery is a little bit delicate. While flicking through the book, I found a stitch that is used or shown in the economy stitch variation, so to say. So the Satan stitch is normally stitched from this side, then you go under. I don't know if you can see. You go to this side, stitch under the fabric, then go up on the side again, and you make the circular motion, so to say. And this book shows the Satan stitch in the what is it, cost saving mode, saving method, where you go like this and then you go on the side and then you stitch back and then you go to the side, and this always leads to warped threads, and I don't really like this version of the short stitch. It's not really a version, it's just a saving method, so to say, like the saving methods for the back stitch, and the stitches always look a little bit wonkier when using this type of stitching. I can understand that people use this, but I think that if you are writing it into a book, then you should hint or talk about it that this is the saving method and that the regular method is the other method, so the regular method, and that you can choose which one you like better or something. I don't know. That's a pet peeve of mine, and I don't really like it if there's no hint about that. So that's a little downer for me, because, well, I like embroidery stitches, and yeah. So I really hate to nag on something like this, but I also can't just don't. So, well, okay, projects. So the projects are 4 pages mostly, so very much space, much space. I don't know. So you have the color guide and the materials, then you have some instructions, and also the picture with the arrows, which how many strands, what embroidery stitch, and so on. So you have a really huge variety of projects in this book, and that's what I like about this book very much. So you have, wait, I have a list. You have a blazer where the lapel is embroidered. I really like that. Then t-shirts, a cap, shoe, so a fabric shoe, a sweater, an apron, a dress, and a backpack, and also many other things like a scarf and so on. Because of the many projects, you get a lot of tips and tricks about each of the variations, because stitching on a backpack requires some tweaks in comparison to a t-shirt or a cap or a shoe. So I really like that there's a huge variety of projects that don't resemble each other so much. So even if you don't like the motifs that are used for this specific project, you can use the tips and tricks to use another motif for a backpack or something else. So the motifs are more on the floral side and the modern witchy side, maybe. So you have some crystals, you have the sun and the moon, and more in that direction. So if you like modern embroidery motifs like that, this book is really a great resource. I would say that it is beginner friendly, but embroidering on clothes is not a beginner activity. I would, that's my hot take. So I think that embroidering on clothes is not very much something that somebody that never held a needle in his or her life, that it's clothing is not the best point to start. And that's because clothes come with so many different fabrics and you can't choose it. If I want to embroider this dress, I have to work with the fabric that it comes with. I can change that. So if I really want to embroider a t-shirt or something, it is very easy to become discouraged, because embroidering on a t-shirt without stabilizer is really not the easiest task. You can put it in an embroidery hoop, but if you stretch it too much, you can distort the fabric, and also, so if you put it out of a take it out of the embroidery hoop, it might distort the motif, and I don't know. I think it is possible for a beginner to embroider clothes, that's out of the question, but there are many things that you can, many traps that you can fall into, and that might discourage you. So if you have linen and cotton clothing that's not elastic or something, then go for it, it's not a problem. But if you have very stretchy or thin or furry fabrics in your clothes, I think that's very hard to embroider. So getting a book like this is really good, because you are made aware of the problems or the traps that you can fall into when stitching on your clothes. So I can recommend this if you only intend to do embroidery on clothes and nothing else. Then this is absolutely a good resource to get. So that is all I have to say about these two. I also showcased my favorite embroidery stitch books. So if you are interested in embroidery stitches, then this video might be for you. I wish you a good time stitching and see you next time.